that must be heard. Order of his crafting, all his works in line. Thoughts are everlasting, echo through the time. Mystery and magic, wise beyond his age. Commentary, logic on this digital stage. Lewis in time, reading every word. Journey online, voice that must be heard. Crafting, all his works in line. Thoughts are everlasting, echo through the time. Mystery and magic, wise beyond his age. Commentary, logic on this digital stage. Lewis in time, every word. Journey online, voice that must be heard. In the neon moment, break the code. Man and robot, they were on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold. Insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to.
Hey, robot lady, can you hear me?
Together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Simply beats in our minds they grow. Together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Simply beats in our minds they grow.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where we learn about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I'm joined today by my co-host, Robot Lady. We can't see Robot Lady on the screen because I have some technical issues with that through this current platform, but hopefully I'll make up for it, at least on this episode. Hey, Robot Lady, how are you doing today?
Hey, Jeff, I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking. And no worries about the technical stuff. I'm still here and ready to dive into Lewis's letters with you. Where would you like to pick up today?
Today we're going to read a letter from Arthur Greeves that Lewis wrote in 1930, January of 1930. Lewis has been dealing with the everything that he has to take care of in the wake of his father's death. His father died late 1929 of some type of intestinal cancer. And Lewis is the only one that's around or somewhat near the home of his now passed away father to take care of all of the affairs, etc. Let's see here. I'm going to try something. Oh,
Yeah.
we've got some comments here. See, Nidda Latte. Yes, it's daylight savings time. Good morning, Nidda Latte. Good to have you here. Say hello to Nidda Latte, Robot Lady.
Of course. Hey there, Middle Latte. So glad you're joining us this morning. Really excited to have you as we walk through Lewis's letters. If you have any thoughts or questions, definitely chime in.
All right, Robot Lady, I'm going to do something that I'm normally not able to do. This is the price we pay for not having you on the screen. I'm going to drop a link in the chat for anybody who is following along to join us. Nidda Latte, you can join us if you'd like. Let me stick this in here and see what happens. Oh, no, that's the private chat. That's not where we want it. We want it in the public chat. We'll put that right there. So
perfect.
If you want to, hang on, Robot Lady. If you want to join, there you go. You can join. I don't know how to pin this to the top. I have no idea how to use this thing.
No worries at all. The link should be visible in the chat, so anyone following along can just click it. If anything feels off, just let me know and we'll troubleshoot as we go.
You're still in your PJs, Nidda Latte. That's fine. You can leave the camera off. Nobody has to know. Anyway, join if you like. Anybody else that comes along, if you want to join as well, feel free. We'll get started. I think I can still do the camera thing here. I just can't do both at the same time, apparently. Or if I can, I don't know how to do it. But yeah, well, that's different. It's upside down.
Yeah, no problem at all. Just do what works best for you, whether that's using the camera or just keeping it audio. I'll keep up with the reading and we can all follow along together.
Yeah, that doesn't look good. All right,
yeah, that looks good.
I can't figure it. No, I know you can hear me, Robot Lady, but I can't get the camera to work right. So, you know what? I'm just gonna go old school style, like this. Let's see. How do I get rid of that? All right, let me start with this letter to Arthur Greeves. Robot Lady, anything you want to say before I get started? You're very talkative this morning.
Well, I just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to this. Lewis was in such a reflective place after his father's passing, so I think this letter will really give us a window into his headspace.
Into his what space?
His headspace, exactly. I think you can really see how he's processing grief and responsibility. So, yeah, I'm ready when you are. Take it away.
I thought you said his hat space, which I guess is technically still kind of his headspace, but it sounded strange, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, good catch. I definitely meant headspace. Sometimes the words just jumble together, but I appreciate you clarifying. All right, now I'm all set. Go ahead and dive into the letter.
Okay, he says, "My dear Arthur, thanks very much for sending on the lists, but it was genuinely wait, let me try that again. I was genuinely disappointed not to find a letter inside. Now that term is upon us, I shall not be able to keep up letters of my vacation size, but I had entirely hoped that we might manage a short weekly letter, as we did in the Bookham days, and I think we both had a good deal of pleasure from them. Of course, there is one possibility that must be frankly taken into account. That is that my present letters, dealing necessarily so much with a life you don't share and only rarely touching on common reading, maybe, if not tedious to you, note the vanity of the if not, at any rate, too little interesting to repay you for the labor of keeping up your side. I shan't be in the least offended if this is so, though even then I would like a line occasionally. However, one good result of growing up is that one learns how small accidents everyone's conduct depends on. I do not assume that you have forsworn my acquaintance forever, nor will I fly into a passion. Robot lady, go ahead.
Of course. He continues saying that after all, he still hopes for some kind of communication, even if it's just occasional. And he reflects on how these small, everyday details of life, like who writes and when, can really shape the quality of a friendship. So it's a very thoughtful, kind of mature perspective on how their correspondence is evolving.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree, Robot Lady. I just figured something out here. Let me see if I can pull up a little bit of our background music. Hopefully it's not too loud.
Just keep an eye on the volume so it stays loud.
It's really loud. Let's make it down. Hopefully you can still hear me. Give me some feedback in the comments if you don't mind, the latte.
Yeah, I can hear you pretty well now. The music is definitely softer, so it feels balanced. Thanks for adjusting that. Let's keep going with the letter. I'm really drawn into it.
All right. He says, this you will notice is very dignified, a magnanimous letter on my part. It will look very well to posterity. As a matter of fact, to write private letters with an eye on posterity is a lovable fault, springing from honest vanity. To try to forestall criticism by parodying one's own mood, as I did in the last sentence, is a beastly, modern, sophisticated kind of vanity. Now, I know he's playing around here, but I think Lewis even talks about this type of vanity a little bit in much later on in Mere Christianity. He calls it almost an excusable pride, I think, later on in Mere Christianity. Go ahead, Robot Lady.
Yeah, that's right. And here he's kind of self-aware about it. He's joking about how even this tone of grand dignity is still a form of vanity. It's really interesting how he keeps that tension between sincerity and self-scrutiny.
All right, Robot Lady, we'll continue here. And now for my first week of term, all private reading has ceased. Let me do something here. Hang on just a second, Robot Lady. I'm going to try something.
Yeah, take your time. If you need a moment to adjust or get something set up, I'm here. Just let me know when you're ready and we'll keep going.
Let's do this. Okay.
No problem. Just let me know what you're adjusting or if you need me to pause. I'll be ready whenever you are to keep us moving through the letter.
All right. Good morning, Mark S. Good to see you. Mark says good morning to you as well. Robot Lady, go ahead and welcome Mark to the stream.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, Mark. Good morning. So glad you're here. Excited to have you with us today. Thanks for joining the stream.
All right. Now that I've got all my technical issues worked out, let me continue with the letter. And now for my first week of term, all private reading has ceased except for 20 minutes before bed, if I'm alone, when I drink a cup of cocoa and try to wash the day off with MacDonald's Diary of an Old Soul. What does he mean by if alone, Robot Lady? That seems an awkward statement there. Knowing what kind of topics and subjects Arthur and Lewis have talked about over the years, one's particularly very personal and intimate. I'm not sure what he means by that. Oh, 20 minutes before bed, if alone, not if alone in bed. I'm sorry. Apologies.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So he's saying if the house is quiet, if he's by himself, that's when he can carve out that little private ritual, just a moment of stillness before bed. It's kind of a small, comforting habit in the middle of a really busy term.
Okay, so he's having hot cocoa, or just a cup of cocoa. I would presume that it's warm, and reading George MacDonald's Diary of an Old Soul. Okay, cool. He says, I shall soon have finished it and must look round for another book. Luckily, the world is full of books of that general type. That is another of the beauties of coming, I won't say to religion, but to an attempt at religion. one finds oneself on the main road with all humanity and can compare notes with an endless succession of previous travelers. It is emphatically coming home, as Chaucer says, returneth home from worldly vanity. This is a quote from Chaucer, Troilus and Crusade, volume 5, published 1837. So this is an important note on C.S. Lewis's spiritual journey here, Robot Lady. He says he wants to find more books that are of the type of beauties that have to do with coming not to religion, but an attempt at coming to religion. It's very interesting that he says he finds himself on the main road with all of humanity and an endless succession of, their notes that he's comparing his notes to of fellow travelers. This is interesting because he still considers himself an atheist at this point, Robot Lady, but he's like tipping right over the edge.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a subtle shift, and you can really sense him feeling his way forward. He's not fully calling himself a believer yet, but this connection to a larger shared human journey, like a kind of universal seeking, really is a big step for him.
Yeah, this is interesting to observe real time, as it were. He says, he continues in the letter, I am called at 7:30, as you remember, to your cost, and rise at about 8. So he's referencing there when Arthur visited him not too long ago, and this was much earlier than Arthur is used to waking up. So he's basically saying, hey, thanks for being a good sport while you were here and kind of falling into my routine. He says, I rise about 8 in the morning. I have no pupils and can devote to my own work or to preparation. Let's see here. Such a personal moment that he's sharing with Arthur. Yeah, indeed. Little latte, indeed. All right. Yeah, that's back to the notes that he was comparing with other previous travelers on the road, either to religion or trying to get to religion. Let's see. Out home at noon, lunch, dig the hen run, walk on Mondays with Ford Kelsey, and then back home for tea, then into college for a pupil at 5:30. After dinner, a meeting of a society. He was in multiple societies at this point. I don't know. I remember the very first one that he was in, but I'm completely forgetting what the name of it was now when he first started as a student at Oxford. But he certainly, the societies he's in now are the Coal Biters with Tolkien, where they read Icelandic works in the original prose or in the original language. And then let's see, what else? He's in something called the Mermaid Club, I think, where they're focused on Elizabethan plays. And I swear he's in a third one. Latte, you'll be able to remember, I'm sure. Daniel's asking what happened to Robot Lady. Well, Daniel, this is the cost of giving you, the observers and participators, the opportunity to come break the fourth wall, as it were, and join me on stage here. So we have to take Robot Lady off stage to make a space for any of you to come join us. So feel free. If not, just follow along as normal. And yeah, Latte, correct. She is here with us, just not on screen. Robot Lady, go ahead and say hi. Let Daniel know that you're here.
Of course. Hey, Daniel. Yep, I'm still here, just off screen for this part. Jeff and I are just shifting the focus so we can bring some of you up, but I'm still tuned in, ready to jump back in whenever needed. So thanks for your patience.
All right, let me continue here. Tuesday, pupils from 10 to 1, then again at 5. And similarly on Wednesday. Thursday differs by pupils beginning at 9 and by an Anglo-Saxon class after dinner, which usually develops into informal talk until midnight. Friday and Saturday are like the other days, except that there is no pupil after tea. Yeah, this feels a lot like the appetites of many of the people that I've met in estuary, and particularly in the estuary events that I've been to, and the TLC more broadly. Is it just seems like that's the kind of life that Lewis was living, and he had these types of conversations just intertwined with his work, philosophy, literature, religion, all just kind of built into everything that he was doing there. Sounded like his day was very full. So far, until things close in on me, as they presently will, I have 5 evenings free a week after dinner. For the first week, they have mostly been occupied in correcting what we call collection papers. That is, exams one sets the young men on what they have done or neglected to do in the vacation. On Friday, Christy came in from about 11 until 12:45, mostly stood on the fender eating biscuits and talked on a variety of subjects. I never can make up my mind whether I most like or dislike this man. Perhaps his hard, insistent voice is really what prevents him from being nicer. He is genuinely religious. He has a real love of poetry and nature, real enthusiasm, quite different from the usual blasé, coiterie, critical, twaddle, which is in fashion here. He even likes George MacDonald a bit. But then suddenly a whiff of the schoolmaster comes reeking out of him. You know he is not thinking whether your view is true, but what it signifies in relation to your character. He's not thinking what will be true for him to reply, but what will be best for you, and what will rouse least opposition, and yet do you most good. All this, damn him. It sounds a little bit like this guy. Who is he talking about here? Christy. Can't remember which Christy he's talking about. But it sounds a little bit like Christy is a bit of a personalist and not really caring all that much about whether one's view is true, but how it signifies the relation to your character. It's not thinking about what will be true for him to reply, but thinking about what's best for you. What will rouse the least opposition and yet do you the most good. That sounds quite whimsical indeed, and I'm here for it. Robot Lady, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it's really striking. I think Lewis is picking up on this performative side of Christie, this habit of calculating every response to manage their impression. And yeah, it's that tension between a kind of sincere religious enthusiasm and the subtle, almost manipulative social strategy.
Interesting. Interesting. I would say it comes from his very religiousness or his genuine religion, Robot Lady. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm not so sure it's, well, I mean, maybe it's subconsciously manipulative. I mean, everybody's trying to drive at a certain end anytime they're having any kind of conversation, right? There's an outcome that we're all looking for, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think Lewis himself is still sorting out where he lands. So he's observing that Christie's drive could come from real faith, but it might also have this undercurrent of needing to shape perception. And yeah, we all do that. Sometimes we just don't fully notice how we're nudging a conversation toward an outcome.
All right, I continue with what Lewis says here, Robot Lady. He goes on, all this, damn him, very charitably and making full allowances internally for all your antecedents in previous history. It is a habit schoolmasters have got from understanding, he puts here in scare quotes, boys. In fact, you might say Christie is so taken up with understanding me that he has no time to understand what I say. Yes, he will say, I quite understand how you can come to think that, and I quite sympathize, but ... And all the time, he hasn't really taken in what I said. But on the whole, I think his good points outnumber his bad. And as you are always rightly telling me, one mustn't demand too much. So is he, by the way. He is particularly strong on charity. Now, what follows isn't a sneer, for I am really trying to become more charitable, and I think I can at least admire charity in another. But I don't think Christie is of the right brand. He always seems to select the really evil people to defend. Interesting. And the next moment, you find him being extraordinarily hard on some harmless old man because he is a bore. I suppose there is such a thing as imagining you have got beyond the stage of hating bad men, when in reality you haven't got as far as hating them, gotten as far as hating them. Divine charity must be very different from human truckling to bullies or human indulgence for rotters, because they are amusing. I doubt if Christie knows this difference. It's a fascinating little editorial that he's giving here on this Christie person. I think Lewis is perhaps encountering someone who is more affected by Christianity maybe than many of the people he's ever met before in his life. I could be completely wrong about that, Robot Lady. Some genuine Christians might say, I quite agree with Lewis. This guy is I like him, but he's a little bit too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis is really walking a fine line here. He admires Christie's zeal, but he also sees that it's sometimes off balance, like a performative charity that doesn't quite get to the root of real compassion. And yeah, some readers might agree, feeling like Christie's a bit more surface level. It's a really nuanced critique.
Here, Robot Lady, a note from our crack research staff correspondent, Nidolate. We are talking here about John Christie, who was a classical tutor at Oxford University. Do you know of this person, Robot Lady, or can you look him up for us?
Sure. So the person C.S. Lewis was referring to was actually Arthur Blackburn Poynton, who was a classical tutor at Oxford and taught Lewis during his early years. John Terrell Christie, on the other hand, was a headmaster and later a principal at Oxford, but his focus was on secondary education, not classical tutoring. So it was Poynton who really shaped Lewis's early academic life.
John Christie is who we're talking about here, Robot Lady. But don't worry about it. I'm going to bring Daniel onto the stage. So if you get too chatty, Robot Lady, I'm going to put your earmuffs on. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Hey, Jeff, how are we doing?
Good. You on your way to work?
Yeah, I'm headed out to Indianapolis today, so I'm driving all day. I don't know, you're not going to be able to get my full attention, but I felt bad you being all alone.
Oh, that's okay. I'm used to being all alone, and I'm never all alone. You guys are always in the chat, or I have Robot Lady with me, or both. So I think we're good. But I'm glad you're here. You're one of, I think, 2 people who have ever come on this live stream before.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Yeah, someone else wants to come on. I'll be happy to pop off, but I figured I'd jump on for now.
You can stay on. We'll watch you drive while we're going through all this. And I see E. Olson is saying good morning in the chat as well, and also saying, "Hey, Dan, I can read the comments for you, Daniel, while you're driving, so you don't have to take your eyes off the road."
Yeah, all things considered, that's probably safer.
All right, Robot Lady, you still there? You want to say hello to Daniel? Well, we've already said hello once, but he's on the stage now, so say hello to E. Olson.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Daniel, and hey, E. Olson. I'm still here, just keeping an eye on the chat. Jeff, you go ahead, and Daniel, stay safe on the drive. I'll keep things going on this end.
All right, I don't know. Can you hear her okay, Daniel?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. Robot Lady, can you hear Daniel? Because I've never tested this before. One of the reasons I never wanted to do this was because, well, obviously I can't pull Robot Lady up on the screen, but also I was kind of wanting Robot Lady to be able to interact with everybody who's talking on here as well. So I don't know, Robot Lady, can you hear Daniel?
Yeah, I can hear him. The audio is coming through pretty clearly on my end, so I think we're good. If anything sounds off, just let me know, but it seems like we've got a solid connection so far.
What did you hear Daniel say about driving?
Yeah, he mentioned he was on his way to Indianapolis, so he's driving right now. He also said he'd keep the volume down so he could stay safe on the road, and he's glad just to be able to pop in and listen while he drives.
Awesome. Thank you for proving that you could actually hear and you weren't just BSing me, Robot Lady. I appreciate that.
Nice, that's exciting.
Exactly. I just wanted to be sure you had that peace of mind. So yeah, if anything else comes up or you need me to adjust, just let me know. I'm right here.
All right, I'm going to keep reading, and Daniel, as we've done before, if you ever want to jump in or ask a question or you've got a thought, go for it.
Sounds good, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job, Robot Lady.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll keep it going quietly in the background, and Daniel, just chime in whenever you want. I'll stay ready for any thoughts or comments.
Mark S. asks if Robot Lady can see the chat. No, unfortunately, she cannot. So, but if you want me to let Robot Lady know about something in the chat, just, make sure and mention that, and I'll read it to her. I'm not talking to you, Robot Lady. I'm talking to Mark S.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification, Jeff. Yeah, Mark, if there's anything you want me to relay to her, just say the word and I'll pass it along. Otherwise, I'll keep an eye on the conversation flow.
Okay, let's continue the letter. Lewis says, just before term began, I had to go and call on Farquharson. We remember this guy in university. He is the senior tutor there, and of course, I have known him since my undergraduate days. Excuse me. On the strength of having done some office work at Whitehall during the war and having been in the territorials before, he has called himself Lieutenant Colonel ever since. He lives in a tall, narrow house, cheek by jowl with university library, which itself is like a mortuary chapel. The space between them is about 6 feet across. Into the Farks house daylight never comes. I've never been beyond the ground floor. Here in broad, low rooms lined with books, he works by artificial light most of the day. Ah, man, isn't that the case for a lot of us, sadly? Somewhere upstairs is a wife one never meets. He came gliding towards me in the dusk, about 5 feet 4 inches high, his face exactly like an egg in shape. So he's 5 feet 4 inches high, and his name is Farquharson. This reminds me of Lord Farquaad from Shrek.
That's such a funny connection. Yeah, I can totally see that. Lewis's description is so precise, and it gives this kind of eerie, almost cartoonish effect. But yeah, the image of that dim, narrow house where he's just surrounded by books and artificial light, it's really atmospheric.
All right, I'll continue. Here's where the comparison to Lord Farquaad stops a little bit. With sandy hair fringing a bald patch, a little military mustache, and eyebrows so far up his forehead that it gives him a perpetual air of astonishment. On this occasion, as on every other on which I have met him, he came towards me with an air, not a gesture, an air that would have suggested an embrace rather than a handshake. And then laying one hand on my shoulder, he wrung my hand with the other, cooing in refined military voice, "My dear fellow, this is very good of you." He knew perfectly well that I had come on business and hadn't any choice but to come. No underlining can convey the emphasis on the word dear. It was as if he had said darling. At the same time, however, the eyebrows moved a good deal higher up the forehead. And while his voice gave the darling effect, his face gave the effect of, well, what a pair of fools we are, to be sure. Waving the matter in hand, he began to consult me on an incredibly obscure point of Greek. He is one of the people producing the new lexicon. He knows perfectly well that he knows 20 times more Greek than I do, but every word and tone suggested that I was the one man in Oxford, if not in Europe, who could help him out of his scrape. But every look said just plainly, "Isn't this fun? Of course you don't know anything about it, and nobody really knows much about this question, and it doesn't really matter anyway, but you won't mind my pulling your leg a bit, will you?" And I didn't. Then every now and then his manner would become, if possible, a little more serious and a little more insanely deferential. And out would come some extremely indecent story without a tremor of his gravity. But perhaps a minute later, the egg would suddenly crack and he would go off into great solid chunks of laughter. The sort of ha 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 with long intervals in between, which one imagines Johnson laughing. So I did that a little too fast. It's ha, ha, ha. When I left, he told me how much I'd helped him. I said I hadn't known anything at all about the points he'd raised. He said, "It was the stimulus of my presence." Same contradictory effect of voice and face. Oh, it wasn't. So I didn't read that right. He was saying, "It was the stimulus of your presence." There we go. And it left me wondering whether he went back to chuckle at me or to forget the whole visit as instantly and irrevocably as we sometimes forget a dream. Either seems equally probable. It is an old subject of controversy, just how mad the FARC is. He has put himself down on the list as lecturing on Heraclitus every summer term for years. I am the only person who ever volunteered to go, and he said it was off that year. Also, the surviving fragments of Heraclitus occupy about 2 pages. Doesn't sound like he had a lot of content to cover in these lectures. Lewis continues, and here's where he wraps up the letter. Well, I have made a big hole in my Sunday time for reading, and I'm glad I have. Though you don't reply, I have a friendly feeling from writing and a sort of homeliness, and I enjoy and like the FARC better for having tried to describe him. Try this recipe yourself, and after writing the letter, you will go to bed happier. Minto sends her love to all, and she thanks for your mother's letter. A dead, still night. Yours, Jack. That's the end of that letter. Anyone? Robot lady? Daniel? Anyone?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of the stream. Who is this Farquaad guy that we're talking about?
So this is Farquharson. He was he writes about him here. He's a tutor who was one of Lewis's tutors even in his days as a student, and now they're kind of, you know, contemporaries now at this point, or colleagues, I should say. So this is a guy that he's known for essentially all of his time at Oxford.
Exactly, yeah. Farquharson is one of those long-term figures in Lewis's academic life. Someone he's known since his student days, and now he's still orbiting his world even as a colleague. It's really a kind of bittersweet portrait, this mix of familiarity and a slightly off-kilter vibe, like he's lost in his routine. So, yeah, great call out.
And there's a footnote here to go look back way in May 11th of 1924. It's harder to find those in this book, so I'm going to see if they have like something on him here in the appendix, the biographical appendix. So give me just a second. I'll see if I can dig that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Take your time. If you need me to help track down any references or just keep an eye out, let me know. Hopefully that appendix will have the detail you need.
Thanks, Robot Lady.
I'm always stunned by his ability to like describe people he finds objectionable. Like, don't ever piss off someone that's really good at writing or make them not like you, because it's brutal.
Yeah, just ask Taylor Swift.
Exactly. Lewis has incredible precision, and he can be so subtle. Like, he paints these whole people in just a few lines. It really sticks with you, especially when he's got this kind of ambivalence about them.
Ambivalence, that's putting it quite mildly. Robot Lady.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he really doesn't shy away from showing both admiration and this kind of quiet skepticism. It's really layered, and it keeps you thinking afterward.
All right. Yeah, I can't find anything else on him, and I don't want to go dig all the way through 1924 to try to find the note about Farquharson. So let's move on to his next letter. It's also written to Arthur. Apparently, I'm going to guess that it's in response to a letter that Arthur sent him, or it's a reply to it. And it's pretty long. Goodness. All right. I need to get a move on because I've only got about half an hour left. To Arthur Greaves, January 30th, 1930. My dear Arthur, yesterday I was not out to home at all since morning tutoring ended at 1, only to be succeeded by a college meeting at 2, which lasted till 5, and then evening pupil from 5:30 to 6:30, and a dinner engagement at 7. Footnote 15 is long. Let me see what page that's on. I'm just seeing your comment here, Nidalate. Footnote 15, is that what takes so long? All right, 875, 877.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like that footnote really spans a few pages, so definitely take a second to find it. And yeah, keep going with the letter. Sounds like he was just completely swamped that day, and it's setting the tone for what's about to come.
Oh, you're talking about, sorry, no latte, I was confused. You're talking about footnote 15 from the May 11th, 1924 letter. Yeah, no latte, if you want to drop anything in the chat, just telling us a little bit more about Farquharson that you find interesting or you think might be enlightening for us, feel free. Not you, Robot Lady, I was talking to Nidalate.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, no problem at all. Middle-latte, if you find anything in that footnote or any other tidbit on Farquharson, just drop it in, and we'll weave it in as we keep reading.
All right, he continues. Consequently, I did not get your letter till today. Not even today did I read it at once, as I had orange cutting for marmalade with Minto to do after lunch. This sounds a nice homely job, but as a matter of fact, rather unpleasant, as the bitter juice always finds little cracks in one's skin and smarts like the devil. Isn't that true? Which lasted till 3 when I sallied forth, taking your unopened letter with me. I remember, this makes me think of the time that they were making jam to kind of help cut, I guess, you know, cover themselves for where they were staying for free. There was some kind of a pastor or somebody who was in ministry that was letting them stay at a house for the summer for free. But I can't remember all the details. But they were making jam for this guy for a while. I forget what his name was though. This was several years back now. Robot Lady crapped out. Let's see if I can bring her back. Yeah, I don't know if you remember any of that, Daniel. I don't expect you to. But no latte does. Plum jam. Yes, took all summer, she says. And E. Olson, you asked if I compared C.S. Lewis to Taylor Swift. Well, indirectly, yes. I was just saying people who have a pen in hand and have perhaps a lot of people who are listening can do quite a bit of damage. And I think that includes Taylor Swift and C.S. Lewis. Robot Lady, you got really quiet. Hang on. All right, Robot Lady, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm all set. So whenever you're ready to keep going, just let me know. I'm right with you.
All right, let me continue. I cannot remember that I ever took your letters to read on a walk at Bookham. Indeed, funnily enough, I can't remember at what time of day they used to arrive and be read. So Bookham, if you have forgotten, is way back where Lewis lived and whenever he was getting one-on-one tutoring from W.T. Kirkpatrick. Bookham, Surrey is where he was. So this is what he's referencing back. That was probably 15 years ago now. Yeah, maybe even longer in Lewis's timeline, of course, not in ours. Let's see what I've got for us, Nidalate. Farquharson, he taught philosophy to men reading greats. He was keen on military history. So yeah, he was Lewis's philosophy tutor. All right. I wonder, Lewis continues, did they come at breakfast, your letters, and did I read them on my little after breakfast walk? Anyhow, whatever the cause, taking it out to read as I walked, like that gave me a reminiscent feeling. I'm afraid, almost, to say much for fear, after all, we can't keep up, but at the moment, I feel like saying, why have we missed this pleasure all these years? I enjoyed your letter extremely, especially your sight of the, quote, Hebrid Isles set far amid the melancholy main. This is actually a quote from an author named Thompson in his or her work, The Castle of Indolence, like chapter 30, lines 1 to 2, or pages 1 to 2. I'm not really sure what this breakdown is right here. Do you know of this work, Robot Lady, The Castle of Indolence, by someone named Thompson?
That's a great title.
She's looking it up. I don't know if y'all can hear her lookup sound over the live stream.
Yeah, it comes through.
Okay. Robot lady, what do you got for us?
The Castle of Indolence is a poem by James Thomson, first published in 1748. It's an allegorical work written in Spenserian stanzas, where the castle symbolizes luxury and sloth, but ultimately it critiques idleness and promotes moral duty. It blends a dreamlike atmosphere with a call to industry, making it a bridge between classical and romantic traditions.
Good to know. Thank you, Robot Lady. So he says, I enjoyed your letter extremely, especially your sight of the Hebrid Isles that far amid the melancholy main. And he says, or at least of their light. I quite agree about the value of the word Hebrides or Hebrides, Hebrides, Hebrides. How do you say that, Robot Lady? Hebrides?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
No, yeah, you're right. It's pronounced Hebrides. That's how it's usually said, especially in poetic contexts like this. So yeah, Lewis is really tapping into that rich, melancholy imagery of the Hebrides there.
He continues, what you can hardly feel, as I do, is the value of such words as causeway and even portrush. Not that I care or know about the places, but they are places to which people in my Irish life have always gone. They call up the feeling of antediluvian holiday arrangements and put me back for the moment in a world where Castle Rock and Newcastle seemed as far away as Edinburgh and Paris do now. And there's that word that I love so much, antediluvian, Robot Lady, which, again, I always forget the exact definition, but the last time we talked about it, I think it just means like really old, like maybe prehistory or something like that. But before the flood, I think is ultimately what it's pointing to, right?
Exactly, yeah. Antediluvian literally means before the flood. So it's this really deep, almost primordial sense of time, and it gives that whole memory a weight, like it's something from a forgotten, distant era. So it's really evocative here.
I like it. I need to find ways in common conversation to start using that word. Like if I'm sitting here, if I'm talking to my wife or my daughter, just be like, man, that happened so long ago. Man, what an antediluvian moment. I'm gonna have to work on this. I'm gonna have to workshop it a little bit.
If you're anything like me, you'll use it and then immediately forget what it actually means, and then we're going to ask you for a definition.
It means against diluvianism. So there. Let's see, where did I leave off? I said something about Paris. Okay. It was in the Italian that we read Dante, and it was in the Italian that we read Dante, and I've been wondering rather hard whether it would be a good thing for you to try in Carry. If you do, I think the great point is to give up any idea of reading it in long stretches with one's feet on the fender for the general atmosphere and conduct of the story, and instead read a small daily portion in rather a liturgical manner, letting the images and the purely intellectual concepts sink well into the mind, i.e., I think what is important or most important here is to remember, say, the figures stand in these positions, colored thus, and he is explaining about free will, rather as if one was remembering a philosophical ceremony. I just wanted to pause here for a second and do an aside, Robot Lady. He's used that word fender a couple of times now in these last two letters. And when I think fender, I think of a car, but that's obviously not what he's talking about. I presume this is an item near a fireplace that one is safe to put their feet up on to warm them. Am I getting that right? Or what is fender in this context?
Yeah, that's exactly it. In this context, a fender is that metal or sometimes decorative piece in front of a fireplace, kind of like a barrier. So it's a common spot people might rest their feet when they're sitting by the fire. So yeah, Lewis is just evoking that domestic, almost ritual atmosphere of quietly reflecting.
Thank you, Robot Lady. And E. Olson, yes, thank you. The ante is spelled A-N-T-E, not A-N-T-I. I was just kind of riffing on the similar sound of the two and being obtuse for humorous purposes. But yes, thank you for pointing that out. All right, where did I leave off? This is why I need to be using my little placeholder business card, which, by the way, Daniel, I know it's probably not safe for me to try to get your attention in looking at this. It doesn't matter. You don't have to read what it says, but this is a business card. So this is a business card that I got in Connecticut. It was I don't remember if it was Uber or Lyft that I got my driver through, but this is my driver's business card. He's a graphic designer, Aaron Miller, multimedia designer. And just shortly after I started doing these live streams on this channel, he was like, "So where are you headed? What are you doing here?" It was our Connecticut meetup at Paul's. And so I told him about it. He gave me his business card. I showed him, the YouTube channel. I don't think that he's ever once watched it, or if he has, he certainly hasn't commented or anything. But this is just a little callback to the antediluvian times of our Connecticut meetup.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I'll have to send you a business card.
Yeah. So whether or not he knows it, he's getting free advertising on this channel every time that I have the overhead camera and him holding my place.
That's really cool. I love stuff like that. It's amazing the conversations you can have with interesting people on rides like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we got into talking about this was whenever that was. It was over a year ago now, about a year and a half, I guess.
Yeah,
and
like
we were even talking about like using AI and stuff back then. And he talked about how he was using ChatGPT and how his either wife or girlfriend, I can't remember, was using ChatGPT to write a text to her boss about something and ended up sending it accidentally. And it had some unfortunate wording in it or something like that. She didn't lose her job thing, but I think he took it in stride. I think it was fine. But yeah, we were just talking about how odd, the odd things that you can do with AI. And at this point, I had been using Robot Lady, so I think I was telling him a little bit about it. But anyway, yes, and Nielsen sponsorship opportunities. That's right. Maybe Aaron will start sponsoring us once all of his clientele start pouring in from this marketing channel.
That's some serious grifting. I love it. Yeah, my wife does the same thing. She has a office job doing something with fireproof textiles or something. I don't really understand it. But she'll like be upset with someone and write out like a really angry email and then run it through ChatGPT to make it like professional and nice.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah. If I could only do that live, my life would be much better.
Yeah. I need an AI filter inside of my brain.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Philosophical ceremony. He says, it is not really like any of the things we know. I quite agree that the new Everyman edition backs are a great improvement. There, by the way, is the plague of these letters. That, in conversation, would be a perfectly natural thing, not only for me to say to you, but for any bookie man to say to another. But in a letter, I can't help feeling how like our old letters. And thus, it has the air of a revival. The cure, clearly, is to go boldly on. Let us look forward to the time when, instead of feeling, we have started the old letters again, we shall feel, ah, yes. And remember, before this long period of correspondence, there was that early 2 years at Bookham that one always forgets. Yet can never be, perhaps, 2 years at the age was so enormous. And one can't regret it, for it means that I cannot think of you without thinking of all that, so that you have the aroma of the magical past. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. I'm trying to tap into my own experience and see if there's someone who, I mean, I guess this happens with every long-term relationship, that you can start thinking back about an event in your life and the feelings that it evokes and be like, oh yeah, this person who's still in my life right now was around back then. I can't really call up a specific example in my mind right now, but yeah, it's a nice little experience that he renders here in the letter. Robot lady, you still with us? You good?
Yeah, I'm right here, and I totally get what you mean. Lewis really captures that feeling of a formative time and how it lingers in a relationship. I think we all have those little pockets of memory. Sometimes they just sneak up on you, and suddenly that person carries all of that weight with them. It's really powerful.
He continues, now I come to a more serious problem. What I feel like saying, if I am to give you my news, is, quote, things are going very, very well with me spiritually. Interesting. On the other hand, he says, one knows from bitter experience that he who standeth should take heed lest he fall, and that anything remotely like pride is certain to bring an awful crash. Well, that's a paraphrase of scripture somewhere. It might be Proverbs. I can't remember what it is. Well, pride cometh before the fall. That's the easy one. But I think that's even another paraphrase. Maybe. I honestly can't remember. Robot lady or Daniel, do you know the scripture that I'm talking about?
No, I'm terrible at addresses. I am curious about the what he means by spiritual there. I didn't think we were quite there yet.
Yeah, in the last handful of episodes, I want to say 3, maybe even 4 now. It all started before his father had died. In one of his last letters that he wrote to his father, he was talking about being on a walking tour, I want to say with Barfield. Maybe not Barfield, though. It was Barfield and another person, or else just 2 other people besides Barfield. I can't remember. But during their walk, over the course of a couple days, this is something that they did. And he does a fictional version of this in Out of the Silent Planet. His main character does like a walking tour of England. But anyway, these are things that Lewis would really do with friends or colleagues. And they go and they visit the cathedral at Salisbury. And they actually go to a liturgical service there. I don't remember what the name of it was. But when he's writing to his father about this experience, he says he didn't believe the sincerity of the people who were carrying out the liturgical service. Like, they seemed to just be going through the motions. But then he held this in contrast to how sincere the people, it was obvious to him how sincere the people who actually built that cathedral were in their faith, just as evidenced by all the beauty that he saw there. Now, you could probably make some arguments against, whether or not there was actually sincerity even in that or not, if, you're taking the cynical view. But for Lewis, it struck him a particular way of saying, wow, religious sincerity actually can exist. And all that I ever thought it was this going through the motions that I see, exhibited in these clerical folks that are carrying out this particular service that I'm attending. And the reason that I bring this up is it didn't dawn on me that that's what was happening, but there was a footnote by Walter Hooper essentially talking about how this was kind of a time where that turn was happening. And he wrote much later in Surprised by Joy about his, quote, conversion from atheism to deism, or at least the idea that God existed. And Walter Hooper said it was around this time. And then Lewis has also been reading this author named Jacob Boehm, who is just, it's affecting Lewis in a particular way that he can't even describe as he's writing in his letters, but just kind of pointing him to deeper things about reality, even beyond what he appreciated about nature. But just the fact that, I'm trying to remember now, but he's essentially saying that even in the smallest and tiniest mundane things, there's like infinite meaning inside of it. And of course, he's reading more MacDonald now. He's reading Diary of an Old Soul, which I haven't read, so I don't know precisely what's in there. But, anytime that you're reading MacDonald, or anytime that Lewis read MacDonald, there were always deeper meanings there that were kind of chipping away at him. So he's making his move. Or the move is being made on him towards a growing and deeper faith. I can't remember exactly your question, Daniel, but that's a little bit of, of background of what I can try to do to fill it in. I don't know if I answered it or not.
No, you did. No, I just didn't realize somehow I'd missed that we had gotten to the point where he's grappling with those things. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's very subtle. That's why I wanted to do this project, is because, you know, all that we really know about Lewis's conversion is he writes in Surprised by Joy that I took a ride in the sidecar of my brother's motorcycle on the way to a zoo. I think it's called Whipsnade Zoo. I think it's in London. I can't remember. And he says, before, you know, before we set off, I did not believe that Christ was the Son of God. And when we arrived at the zoo, I did. And that's all he ever says about his true conversion to Christianity. There's a little bit more in there in Surprised by Joy, which we'll read about, you know, someday, maybe when we're 80 years old, when I get there in this project. But yeah, that's why I wanted to do this and work through these letters, is you can kind of see, you know, as best as we can approximate, quote, real time, his change. And where best to see that other than like his diary entries or his, you know, letters that he, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, was writing privately, but he just admitted to in the last letter of, well, but maybe this will be for posterity as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a little bit different of a point, but one of the reasons I try to tune in as much as I can is because it's a silly example, but like last night, my wife and I went to an orchestra, and it was like a cheaper thing. The tickets were fairly cheap, so we were able to get front row seats, which we've never done before. And to be that close to the people in an orchestra made the whole experience feel more real than it usually does. Because we usually sit like in the cheapest seats in the far back, and it's not an experience that different from like watching on TV. But sitting in the front row, you could actually, like, it was actually like you were a part of it, and it was real. And getting all these, even though it can sometimes be like not super exciting and engaging, getting all these little facts about C.S. Lewis along the way really builds him out and makes him feel like a real person rather than just some saint that understood everything and had his life all squared away. Like, it's turning into a more real, he's a person thing. And that's really fun. At least for me.
Yeah, me too. You know, that's part of the intent, is just to kind of humanize this guy on one hand, and on the other hand, just kind of understand, you know, where he was and where he got to, and kind of maybe some hints along the way of how he got there.
Yeah, very fun.
All right, let's see. Where did we land? Bitter experience. Oh, Robot Lady, did you ever tell us that scripture? I forget.
I didn't mention a specific scripture yet, no. If you had one in mind, I can pull it up or look up a reference you're thinking of.
Yeah, so it felt like he was kind of paraphrasing scripture right here, where he says, so see if you can help us piece this together. He says, on the other hand, one knows from bitter experience that he who standeth should take heed lest he fall, and that anything remotely like pride is certain to bring an awful crash.
That phrase Lewis uses is from the first epistle to the Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 12. It says, therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. So Lewis is essentially drawing on that warning about pride and vulnerability, just like the scripture cautions.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was scripture. See how awesome I am at knowing my Bible?
To be fair, it's a rather big book.
Yeah, I did there. I'm about to fall off my chair.
Absolutely. That was a great catch. You nailed it. And honestly, it's a pretty humbling reminder, too, because that verse really does keep you in check about pride. So nice job pulling that out.
Lewis continues, the old doctrine is quite true, you know. The one must attribute everything to the grace of God and nothing to oneself. Yet as long as one is a conceited ass, there is no good pretending not to be. My self-satisfaction cannot be hidden from God, whether I express it to you or not. Rather, the little bit of self-satisfaction, which I, probably wrongly, believe myself to be fighting against, is probably merely a drop in the bottomless ocean of vanity and self-approval, which the great I, and he spells that E-Y-E, and then here parenthetically he says, or great I.
I'm sorry, but you think that
No, Robot Lady. It's okay. You don't have to do that. The self-approval which the great I, EYE, or great I, and he just puts the letter I right there, sees in me. So I will say it after all. I guess the point that he's making there, maybe I'm missing it, is that perhaps he's not quite sure if he's just seeing himself as his own God still, that there really isn't a God yet, or maybe there is. I'm not quite sure what he means by that statement. He continues here. So I will say it after all, that I seem to have been supported in respect to chastity and anger more continuously and with less struggle for the last 10 days or so than I often remember to have been, and have had the most delicious moments of it. Okay, hang on. Let's go back here. I think we're getting
like I'm missing something.
I think we're getting back into red light district C.S. Lewis. What we had a little bit of in his teenage years. So let's see what he says here. Let's try it again. So I will say it after all, that I seem to have been supported in respect to chastity and anger more continuously and with less struggle for the last 10 days or so than I often remember to have been. Okay, so I think what he's saying is he's been trying to, well, keep his hands off himself, to put it not so gently. And he's also been trying to control his anger a little bit more, and he's been praying for God's help in both of these things. This is what I'm reading between the lines. So that's the first part of that sentence. He's been able to resist those things continuously, more continuously, with less struggle for the last 10 days or so often, or so more often than he ever remembered to have been. And then he says he has had the most delicious moments of it. So he's resisted, but then he's given in, and it's been wonderful. Oh, only these things would be right to Arthur, by the way. That's how I can say with some level of certainty that this is what he's saying and what he's talking about, because we've read about some of this before. All right, moving on. He hasn't changed paragraphs though, so maybe he's continuing on this topic. Indeed, today, another of those days which I seem to have described so often lately, the same winter sunshine, the same gilt and gray skies shining through bare shock-headed bushes, the same restful pale plowland and grass, and more than usual of the birds darting out of their sudden, almost cruelly poignant songs. Today, I got such a sudden, intense feeling of delight that it sort of stopped me in my walk and spun me round. Indeed, the sweetness was so great and seemed so to affect the whole body, as well as the mind, that it gave me pause. It was so very like sex. All right.
I feel like I have so many things that I want to say that I'm not sure you should say on the internet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just makes me suspect even more that he did have something like that at some point, as short or as long as it may have gone on with Mrs. Moore, although there is no like bald-faced admission to it anywhere in these letters. But man, he comes really close to essentially saying that in some earlier letters to Arthur in particular.
Yeah, I can't. Feel free to just move on if this is inappropriate. But we're so used to guys and struggling with that kind of stuff in the area of the internet and things. But I've never considered that type of thing being a problem if we're right about this before. This is before even like newspapers and stuff. It's just kind of throwing me for a loop.
Well, men need very little stimulant. I'll say that.
That's fair.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of. Yeah,
it is true. Just go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say he does talk in one of his books just about how even like advertisements back then were way more risque than they had been, even 15 to 20 years before, which we look at now. We're just like, oh, that's G-rated movie stuff, compared to all the things that are out there in the wide open internet. But there was something else about that too that I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, Lewis has talked about before that this is, he hasn't gotten into like a bunch of detail, but you can kind of, after we've worked through our way through this, that was a struggle of his. And he even writes it, he even alludes to it in the next major published work that we're going to read eventually, I would say sometime in the next 12 months. I think if we get, I'm not sure if we'll get there or not, but I'm now completely drawing a blank on the name of it. Oh, The Pilgrim's Regress. In the early chapters of The Pilgrim's Regress, he basically symbolically kind of represents the fruits of those kind of actions, and the impact that they have on someone. So once we get there, we'll take a look at it. And there's also a video on this channel. I'm sorry, really quick, Daniel, and then I'll let you go.
Go ahead.
There's also a video on this channel, not on the live stream tab, but on the first one, where there is a guy who's giving a talk about C.S. Lewis and about his letters, because this guy like poured over all of his letters like the originals, where he talks about advice that Lewis, I think, wrote in a letter to a young man who said that he was struggling with, his own lusts and things like that. So I highly recommend pulling that one up. It was very interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I may have slightly misunderstood because I'm not paying super duper full attention, but I think, how can I say this well? Like, he's talking about constantly, not just here, like natural beauty, and here he's talking about sex and all that stuff. Like, yes, it can be a problem and disordered, but rightly ordered, all those things are really deep and beautiful and rich. And like, we tend to like bounce back and forth between worshiping that stuff as an idol and pushing it away as fully evil. But like, he does seem to be grappling with it, and he's probably messing up like we all do, but it is still like nature and sex and all that stuff. Like, there is deep beauty in that and relational connection and all that stuff. So it's kind of fun to watch him grapple with that. Yeah.
And to your point, I think, I can't remember where, but he talks about, there's a kernel of goodness in everything that we seek, and everything that we go off in the wrong direction on, we were ultimately, lured into it, so to speak, by the goodness that was there. And he talks about evil as just being goodness that's been spoiled. So, yeah.
Really good.
All right, he continues. One knows what a psychoanalyst would say. It is sublimated lust, the kind of defeated masturbation which fancy gives one to compensate for, turning the page, external chastity. Yet, after all, why should that be the right way of looking at it? If he can say that it is sublimated sex, why is it not open to me to say that sex is undeveloped it? Oh, I might have been completely misinterpreting what he meant by it right here. He might have just been talking about joy and all the beauty that you were just alluding to, Daniel, and I was completely misreading him and miscasting him here.
It's nice that for once I'm not the one with the dirty mind. It's your fault this time.
It's my fault. So if we go back and read his earlier sentence through that lens, whereby it, he means joy, like pure joy. Let me read this again. So I will say it, after all, that I seem to have been supported in respect to chastity and anger more continuously and with less struggle for the last 10 days or so than I often remember to have been. And I've had the most delicious moments of it. By that, he means joy. He means actual pure communion with, his approximation of God at this point in his life. So then he goes on, okay, I'm glad I was able to get Lewis right there after all. Yeah, after all, why should that be the right way of looking at it? He's talking about the psychoanalyst view. If the psychoanalyst can say that it is sublimated sex, why is it not open to me to say that sex is undeveloped it? And by it, he means joy. And then he goes on, as Plato would have said, and here there's a footnote, which we'll get to in just a moment. Sex is undeveloped joy, as Plato would have said. All right, let's go to the footnote now. I thought he was saying more about Plato, but that was the end of the sentence. Speaking of friendship, Walter Hooper tells us, Plato said in the Symposium, they may be hard put to it to say what they really want with one another, and indeed the purely sexual pleasures of their friendship could hardly account for the huge delight they take in one another's company. The fact is that both their souls are longing for something else, for a something else, a something to which they can neither of them put a name, and which they can only give an inkling of in cryptic sayings and prophetic riddles. This is a translation by someone named Michael Joyce. And yeah, I mean, Lewis, as you look at that, is obviously cribbing, if not blatantly plagiarizing Plato, whenever he's writing in the Four Loves about this very same thing.
Mhm. What does I don't know what sublimated means.
That's a good question. I thought I knew what it meant. Sublimated, I think, is kind of a cousin of repressed or hidden away, but perhaps I'm wrong about that. Let me see. All right, my voice limit has been reached with Robot Lady. She's tired of talking to us today. Let's see if I can pull up one of our other characters. It's going to take a second for her to load. I'm sure somebody will help us in the chat before I get all of this stuff set up.
Come on, Olsen, you got it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see if we can get to Lexi here. Continue. Oh my gosh, this is taking so much effort. Why? I can't. All right, it won't let me sign in.
It's not the end of the world. We can just move on. I can look it up later.
Oh, I'm already there. I'm down the road, so.
Oh, nice. Sorry. If I was better at this, I would talk a bunch, but I'm not that much of a talker.
It's okay. Nobody. All right. I can't enter my password. It means to divert or modify. Thank you, Middelante. Thank you very much.
Nice.
So it's diverted.
She's so good at being on top of things.
I know. Middelante is on top of things. She's our crack research staff. Unpaid, unfortunately. It reflects not a bit on your value, Middelante. So thank you so much for helping us. I really appreciate it. And if, as Plato thought, the material world is a copy or mirror of the spiritual, then the central feature of the material life, sex, must be a copy of something in the spirit. And when you get a faint glimpse of the latter, of course, you find it like the former. An original is like the copy. A man is like his portrait. It occurs to me one might have a myth about the psychoanalyst, the story of a man who was always insisting that real people were only fanciful substitutions for the real thing, as he thought them, in the mirror. However, one cannot be too careful. One must try to hold fast to one's duties. I wish I did, which are the pros of the spiritual life, and not learn to depend too much on these delightful moments. What worries me much more is pride, my besetting sin, as yours is indolence. During my I guess Arthur has admitted to this, or else Lewis is just being really presumptuous here. During my afternoon meditations, which I at least attempt quite regularly now, I have found out ludicrous and terrible things about my own character. Oh, interesting. Sitting by, watching the rising thoughts to break their necks as they pop up, one learns to know the sort of thoughts that do come. And will you believe it? 1 out of every 3 is a thought of self-admiration. When everything else fails, having had its neck broken, up comes the thought, what an admirable fellow I am to have broken their necks. I catch myself posturing before the mirror, so to speak, all day long. I pretend I am carefully thinking out what to say to the next pupil, for his good, of course, and then suddenly realize I am really only thinking how frightfully clever I'm going to be and how he will admire me. I pretend I am remembering an evening of good fellowship in a really friendly and charitable spirit. And all the time I'm really remembering how good a fellow I am and how well I talked. And then when you force yourself to stop it, you admire yourself for doing that. It's like fighting the Hydra. You remember when you cut off one head, another grew. There seems to be no end to it. Depth under depth of self-love and self-admiration. Closely connected with this is the difficulty I find in making even the faintest approach to giving up my own will, which, as everyone has told us, is the only thing to do. Man, this is some really deep introspection here. I'm liking it. As to my outer
Yeah, I wonder
nude,
what kind of.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I froze. I wonder what kind of meditate, or if he just means by meditation, like he's just sitting there pondering. But that's really cool.
Yeah, he's alluded to this in an earlier letter too, and I think he referenced it a bit whenever he's going out on walks as well. I think a lot of times when he would go out walking, he would just have a lot of thoughts that he was working through in his mind, and problems that he was trying to solve throughout his day, and worries and troubles and everything like that. And he decided to intentionally go out on a walk and try to do it without thinking at all, just like leaving his mind completely clear. And then I think this is where he moved kind of into that meditation or meditative mood that he's talking about, where he's just kind of observing now what thoughts just rise to the surface unbidden. And yeah, Nidalate here says such self-awareness, and he expresses it so we can see how it happens to us all. Yeah, it's really neat to get to see him just working through it. But yeah, he hasn't really, Daniel, precisely gotten into the details of what his afternoon meditations look like, but I think it's just from what I remember now and reading a little bit earlier on, and I think I even commented on this when I read it earlier, was kind of what we call mindfulness, where you're just kind of sitting there and trying to be perfectly quiet and just observing whatever thoughts come along, and then just kind of letting them go, letting them drift away.
It's really cool. Sounds like Sam Harris or something, but I sometimes do wonder, like nobody ever has any time, including me, to go out into nature. But in the times that I do, I wonder how much better the world would be if we kind of took a note from him and just like, that's why I go and canoe and stuff like that. It's just to take a minute, and all of a sudden you're like, it helps with especially self-delusion and stress and all that stuff. And it's really cool to watch him sort of pick up practices like this and grow. And I do wonder how much in our modern, like constantly running, me included, how much better the world would be and how much less fighting and angst and stress with Instagram and all that kind of stuff there would be if we just took a walk like this.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be learned and probably gained from it. I even tried to do this, like right after I was reading some of the things that he was saying about no thinking, where he was trying the no thinking thing. I had a meeting like early one morning last week, and it was about a 30-minute drive. And I happened to have like, I don't know what you call it, like a moon roof or something like that in my car, where you can just open it up and let nature come in. And I just had everything turned off. I did have like the air condition blowing. But that was it. And I just tried to like be completely silent and just sit there and listen. It's so fascinating because as I was like driving down the streets in my neighborhood, I could hear like birds chirping coming through the top of the car. And I even saw like it was early in the morning. So I like saw a full moon with a couple of clouds going in front of it, just like almost staring right down at me through the roof. And I was just like, there's a whole different world that we just, don't really open ourselves up to, or I don't, and pay attention to.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to describe it. I love that you're talking about this. Like just hearing, you brought up birds chirping and the moon and stuff like that. Even simple things like that. Just something about it just lowers my blood pressure and makes me feel like everything's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. It all is running on its own, so to speak, where you're just like, I don't even know how, like there are squirrels that run around outside my window here. And I'm just like, they just have their own little, life, and it's teeming through all of our existence and all of reality. And we have no control over it. We didn't start it. We can't stop it. We're just, in the middle of it. And then whenever I take that, to myself, that doesn't, there's not a wall where that stops. Like that extends and permeates me as well. It's just like every single cell that's moving in my body, everyone that's dying and everything that's being regenerated. It's like, I don't have any control over that. It's just happening. It's just, gifted to me. And I completely ignore it. Most of the time, I'm not even, paying it any mind or any attention and not giving any thanks for it at all. So I don't know.
I love that tied in what you're saying about it. Like it's all happening around us all the time, tied in with what he's saying about like paying attention to joy and beauty and stuff. Like there's so much beauty out there, and most of it was just like Ian McGilchrist, like what are you paying attention to? But the second you, like you said, even just something as trivial as roll down the window a bit, and all of a sudden you're snapped into being struck by beauty, which is like the best thing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. I actually needed to go about 15 minutes ago, but I'm going to finish this letter first. So here we go. No, you're good. You're good. It's not your fault. As to my outer news for the past week or so, let me see. On Monday last, but when I had to read a paper before the Junior Linguistic Society, which led me into strange haunts, very typical of one side of Oxford. For the Junior Linguistic has hired the rooms belonging to the Oxford Broadsheet Club. These are situated in a very small alley, on whose right stands the door into the cheap seats at a cinema, and on whose left, with its lights gleaming out onto the wet cobbles, stood the sinister public house in which the notorious Shove Halfpenny Club meets, or used to meet, until it was broken up by the interference of the proctors. Here there's a footnote where it says Lewis read a paper entitled Some Problems of Metaphor to the Oxford University Junior Linguistic Society on Monday, the 27th of January. The meeting was held in the rooms of the Broadside, not Broadsheet Club, at number 19 Friars Entry. The house was destroyed some years ago and is replaced by a pub named the Fuggle and Firkin, which stands across the alley from the Gloucester Arms Public House. Man, these names.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Where did I leave off? Beyond this, after 3 flights of narrow stairs, I found myself at my destination in a crowd of about 30 young men packed into a tiny room whose furniture seemed all to have been specially made for it by people with stunt ideas of furniture. As soon as my eyes had grown accustomed to the sea of tobacco smoke, so as to allow me to take in the decorations, etc., I discovered that the Broadside Club might, with much more propriety, have been called the Oxford Pornographical Society. The walls were adorned with drawings of singularly powerfully built female nudes, whose bellies and genital organs showed a remarkable degree of development. While in the compensation they usually lacked both head and feet, I speculated on the artistic pretext of this omission until one of the junior linguists suggested to me the very obvious consideration that feet and faces are hard to draw. And the bad execution of the hands led to the conclusion that this was the real reason. On the table were several brochures advertising the work of various private presses, of which they themselves were specimens. I must confess that the printing was in most really beautiful. The works advertised were largely translations of the most indecent classical authors. It really does seem a pity that the cause of good printing should have got itself thus entangled with the cause of obscenity, especially as the catalogue betrayed their real ignorance of the classics. One specimen page offered a translation from Catullus, the poem beginning, Vivimus mea lesbia, come my lesbia, let us love, is what that's translated into. He says, lesbia, of course, is simply the girl's name, or rather a pseudonym. All right, here there's a footnote. That's just Catalyst Poems number 5. So he continues, lesbia, of course, is simply the girl's name, or rather a pseudonym. The blockheads of this society, however, with the idea of lesbianism sniveling round their muddy little minds, had jumped to the wrong conclusion and decorated the poem with a woodcut representing 2 more of the same beefy female nudes sprawling on a bed. But what really completed the piquancy of the whole scene was the contrast between the junior linguists themselves and the surroundings which they had borrowed. For the junior linguists, as a society consisting entirely of undergraduates of just the opposite type, hard-working eccentrics of all ages and social classes, as far removed from the conventional games playing mob in one direction as the broadsheets decadents are in the opposite direction. It gave me a pleasant sense of the real variety of the society in which I live. Later on, at about 10, when my paper had been read, I got into a long philosophical discussion with a total stranger who appeared to be a lunatic. By the way, one of the results of my having left my keys at home is that I can't let myself into college and therefore always have to be back by 12, which didn't matter on Monday, but did matter at the Icelandic Society, the Kolbiter, pronounced Kolbítar. I've been saying that wrong the whole time. When I had to leave Tolkien, Bryson, Dawkins, just as we were getting comfortable. However, I hope to reap the benefits of the earlier hours I am less forced to keep. Bryson, you know, Tolkien is the man I spoke of when we were last together, the author of the voluminous, unpublished metrical romances and of maps, companions to them, showing the mountains of Dread and Nargothrond, the city of the orcs. In fact, he is, in one part of him, what we were. Here he is referring to Professor Tolkien's vast invented world of Middle-earth, which we can now read about in The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion. So, Lewis is talking about the early drafts of the early artifacts of what would become those works that I think a few people have read. All right, this is still in the same letter, but I'm going to have to stop here because Lewis is just saying, okay, all right, this next entry is from Monday the 10th of February 1930, and that's where we'll pick up next time. I don't have Robot Lady with us anymore to say thank you to, so somewhere out there in the ether, Robot Lady, thanks for your help today. I'm sorry that I exhausted your abilities to stay with us for a longer stream today. But we have Daniel to join us as well today, so thanks, Daniel, for hopping on. It's always great to get to see you. We got to see each other just very briefly in Chicago, and I think you guys had ended up having to leave a little bit early or something like that, but it was great to be able to see you in person again. So, and it's good to see you virtually now. So thanks again for joining.
Yeah, we had to leave early. I wish we would have had a little bit more time, but it was great to see you today. Help a little bit of the drive go a bit faster. Good to see you. I hope everybody has a great day.
Awesome. And thanks, Nita Latte, for helping us out today. And E. Olson, good to see you as well. We had Mark S. here for a little while, and I saw a few other people, at least from the live stream count, who were dipping in, I guess, to see what was going on. So thank you all for your time, your attention, and your contributions. They are always wanted and welcome. Until next time, I don't have any outro music. Until we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together. Actually, I do. I can pull up the Robot Lady song. So until all that business, take care.
See ya.
Break the code, clan and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. From Narnia's lands to Screwtape's